It was one of those afternoons when the air felt heavy with rain before a single drop had even fallen. I had just finished wiping down the kitchen counters when I noticed the clouds outside turning a deep, rolling gray. My little house sat near the edge of our quiet suburban street, with tall oaks lining the sidewalks. I'd always loved rainy days. There was something calming about the sound of water tapping against the roof. But that day, something felt different. I had no plans except to curl up with a book and a blanket. But just as I was setting my tea on the coffee table, there was a knock at the door, quick, hurried, almost desperate. I pulled it open to find Ethan, my neighbor's 22-year-old son, standing there with his hoodie pulled up, rain already dripping from the edges. His cheeks were flushed from running, and his hands clutched a backpack to his chest. "Hey, Mrs. Carter, sorry, could I stay here for a bit?" he asked, almost out of breath. "Of course," I said, stepping aside. "Come in before you get soaked." The rain had begun its descent in those few seconds, drops pattering on the porch roof, and the wind carried a damp chill into the house. Ethan kicked off his sneakers by the door, revealing socks already damp. I noticed his eyes darting toward the window as thunder rumbled in the distance. "Power's out at our place," he explained as he set his bag down. "Mom's stuck at work, and I didn't want to sit there in the dark while that storm rolled in." I smiled gently. "You're welcome here. Let me grab you a towel." When I returned, he was standing near the couch, glancing at the rows of books on the shelves. I handed him the towel, and he muttered a quiet thanks, rubbing at his hair before sitting down. I could hear the rain getting heavier now, pounding against the glass like a steady drumbeat. We made tea, mine chamomile, his black tea with sugar, and sat across from each other. Conversation came easily at first. The new job he'd started at the community center, my attempt at gardening that summer, how his mom had accidentally oversalted her famous chili last week. It was light, ordinary small talk, but outside, the storm was becoming anything but ordinary. The wind howled, branches whipped against the windows, and then came the crack, loud and startling, of lightning striking somewhere close by. The lights in the living room flickered once, twice, then went out completely. Ethan froze for a second before chuckling nervously. "Guess your house just joined the blackout too." I grabbed the flashlight from the side table, its soft beam cutting through the shadows. "We'll be fine. I've got candles in the kitchen." We worked together to set them around the room, their flickering light casting warm glows on the walls. There was something oddly peaceful about it, even with the storm raging outside. But as I bent down to close the window near the couch, a sudden gust of wind slammed it wide open, sending rain splattering onto the floor and couch cushions. "Hurry up," Ethan called from behind me, stepping forward quickly. "I can't take it anymore. This wind's insane." I realized then his urgency wasn't about impatience. It was the way the storm rattled him. I remembered hearing from his mom how much he hated severe weather, especially storms with lightning. "I've almost got it," I reassured him, bracing against the wind. Together we shoved the window shut with a sharp click, and the room instantly felt calmer, without the gust pushing through. We laughed in relief, and he shook his head. "I swear, I'll never get used to storms like this. When I was a kid, we had one that blew the fence down, and ever since then he trailed off, his smile fading slightly." We moved back to the couch, both of us settling in with our tea again. The rain still hammered the windows, but the worst of the wind seemed to be passing. I could see his shoulders slowly relaxing, the tension in his jaw easing. The conversation drifted deeper. He told me about how overwhelming his new job had been, how he'd been trying to balance it with classes. I told him about the time years ago when I had moved here and knew no one, how the neighbors, including his mom, had made me feel welcome. Hours passed in that quiet, candlelit space. The storm outside began to weaken, and eventually the rain softened to a steady, calming patter. The lights flickered back to life, and I blew out the candles one by one. "Thanks for letting me stay," he said, slinging his backpack over his shoulder. "And for helping me not lose it when that window flew open." I smiled. "Anytime, Ethan. You're always welcome here." As he stepped back into the damp, cooled air of the evening, I realized that sometimes the most unexpected moments, the ones that start with panic, can leave behind a warmth that lingers far longer than the storm itself. And every time it rains now, I find myself thinking of that day. Not because of the thunder or the lightning or the way the wind tried to break through my living room, but because of the reminder that even in the middle of a storm, there's comfort to be found in the company of someone who simply needs a place to be.